Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta coming to you Tria after the Wild practiced today. 12:30 flight to head down to Tampa to start a 3-game road trip. And obviously there was a void of practice today, Anthony. And that was the most jovial ray of sunshine, always smiling, always laughing, Jessi Pierce, who is not here. And it felt that way.
It did feel that way, and it felt that way on Saturday at the game. Just a cloud of sadness kind of hanging over a somber feel, and almost just a surreal thing. And thoughts and prayers obviously go out to her family, a tragic story. And there's just a part that still just doesn't feel real. And it's a loss that's felt. You could tell by Bill Guerin and his somber and emotional and very real feelings, and the same from John Hines. And I don't want to try and make this sound like it was a closer friend and a tighter friendship, but it was somebody that we saw every day at the rink for 6 months.
Yeah.
And just somebody you had a respect for, but also you just realize how much of an impact just the people that you just cross paths with every day really have on your life.
Yeah. I've known obviously Jessi for more than 10 years. And, I still remember when Hudson was born and she was balancing motherhood with work, and she would bring Hudson to practice often. And, and always going up and, kind of, say hi to Hudson and, giving a little squeeze on the cheeks. And Mikhail Granlund and him had an unbelievable relationship where it almost felt like Hudson, every time he came into the locker room, the second he saw Granny light up, he lit up. And they had there was no other player that had that reaction with them. Definitely no other media member. But I just cannot believe that we're sitting here. I mean, she was at practice Friday, the day this happened, and joking around with us about bringing her kids to Cup and Cone that day. She was wearing an Iowa State sweatshirt, was all excited to. I asked her, I'm like, who's Iowa State playing? Thinking it's hockey or something. She's like, Tennessee State. I think Tennessee State. And she was Tennessee, and she was going to watch her Cyclones play. And then seeing, just as normal, you're scrolling through Instagram and you're looking at the stories, and she's got 3 pictures of her kids eating ice cream, or, Avery and Hudson reading books in their house. And the next thing you know, you get this call that morning, just beyond belief.
Yeah, and I chatted with her that day when practice was done, just a nondescript conversation. We were talking about the lineup that we expected to see, and she asked me some question about restaurants. We were talking about restaurants in White Bear, actually, and I don't really recall. There wasn't anything really meaningful in the conversation, but it was just the kind of stuff you'd talk about every day. And the next morning, I was at the gym, and Margot texted me the story, not knowing who it was, and just said, "Oh my God, look at how sad this story is in White Bear Lake." And I had asked her, I said, "Well, is this somebody you knew or something?" I mean, and she said, No, I just saw the news story. Well, then when I got to the rink and heard that it was Jessi and her family, it was crushing to think about it from the perspective of a parent, because none of us will ever know exactly what happened. And I just keep thinking about what the final moments of life might have been in that house. And all I hope for is that it was something sudden, like some kind of an explosion or something, because if it wasn't, I just think about were the kids trying to help each other? Were they running to their mom for comfort? Why wasn't the dog running around barking that would have awakened people? I mean, I find myself always wondering what those last moments of life really were. And there's nothing any of us can do, but it does always makes you appreciate and just kind of take a step back and remember how lucky we are to have the life that we have, how suddenly things can change. And again, I don't want to overly dramatize this, because it isn't, to say, like, would you have handled things differently if you knew this was the last time you were going to see somebody? Well, obviously that's the case.
100%.
But at the same time, it just makes you feel like, should you just take the time to appreciate the little things a little bit more every day? We had a Sunday dinner last night with 2 of my 4 kids and their significant others and my mom, and the story came up at some point, and it does just make you sit and think, like, let's just never take these times together for granted.
Well, I mean, just, you were in the room. Remember I said to her that day, I said, man, you look tired. And she told us why she was tired, and she was having trouble sleeping. And then she even said to me, she goes, why don't you just tell me I look like, whatever, Russo? And I'm like, no, I'm kidding. And just the fact that morning I woke up thinking about that, and I almost sent her a text like, hey, hope you really know I actually was not saying that. The other thing is, like, the other weird thing that happened that morning is, State Farm, Tony Hoagland, who used to advertise on this show, right before the Olympics, I got this promo from State Farm for this Ting device. And I thought at first it was just some fake spam. And then I looked, and it was actually from State Farm. So I just signed up, and I said, yeah. And 2 days later, it was sent to my house, and I plug it in, and it pairs with my home. And it's the whole point of this device is and again, we don't know what happened at Jessi's house, but it's supposed to notify you well in advance if you have some sort of electrical issues in your home that could be dangerous. And what are the chances? That morning, I scroll down on my phone to hit Twitter, and when I type the T, this Ting device comes up on my phone. And I'm like, I've never actually opened this app. And I open it up, and there it is, like my house essentially mapped. And then so I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then a couple hours later, I find out about this. The thing that Jessi was amazing at is she had this incredible way of balancing, first of all, being the most, upbeat, vibrant person in the world in a sport where a lot of us crotchety old dudes are not that way. You know that better than anybody with me. But yet she'd ask tough questions. She'd write great stories. She was very unique in her brand that she started, essentially, where, that's why I think it resonated with so many, not only Wild fans, but around the league. The number of texts I've gotten the last couple of days, beyond belief, from people in the league that didn't know her, did know her, players in the league, bunch of players on the Wild the last couple of days, coaches. It really, she had this way. I mean, you saw her in the summer times where she's going to Hendrickson Foundation festivals or going down to the Beauty League and always interviewing somebody with a smile on their face. And that and she had an impact, like, on the hockey community, all the good things she did with different charities. John Hines had the cameras turned off after the press conference the other day and was bawling as he was talking to us. Bill Guerin came up to every one of us individually at the game the other night, privately, to talk to us and make sure we were okay and let us know that they were in it with us. And you just think about the family now and everything.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying. It's when you realize just what it feels like to have somebody that you see on an everyday basis all of a sudden be gone.
Yeah.
And the number of times I've thought about that we were sitting here 15 hours before her life ended, just bantering about nothing specific. But these are all what her job was. It took her to the visiting locker room every day, and there weren't very many people that covered the team here that would also go across the street to the visiting team. And I didn't go every day. I'd go every once in a while if there was some reason. And she oftentimes would be the only reporter there.
Yeah, she after Wild games, a lot of times would be literally the only reporter asking the visiting coach questions after a loss, a win,
right,
everything.
And so that's what doesn't surprise me, that it just, there were people that, even if you just cross paths with her a couple of times, it still, to me, just, there's a big element of it that just doesn't feel real.
Yeah.
And it's so many times in spots like this. Now here we are today, Wild are practicing and getting on a plane, and life just goes on.
Yeah.
And there will be a time, there will be a point where it's not crossing your mind every day anymore when you're around the team and around the rink. But and to go back to her family, I just keep thinking about imagine being the husband and being on this work trip. And I don't know any of the details, but I know he was gone on what was a work trip. Imagine now on that plane ride home, knowing you're coming home to nothing. You're coming home to your life as you knew it, gone. You're home, your wife, your family, your dog, every belonging that you have. I can't, the sadness that I feel for him and those questions that are in my mind have to be in his times 1,000 to just wonder what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Just lastly on this, so when I found out that morning, obviously I can't even tell you my reaction. Somebody called me, and right away, I won't say who, but another person on the beat, the Wild Beat, is super tight with Jessi, and I said to the person that called me, I'm like, I got to call her, and so I call her, and it goes to voicemail, and anyway, she calls me back, and she's like, hey, and so right away I know that she doesn't know, and then I go, I don't even know how to tell you this. And I just told her, and I'll be forever haunted by this phone call. I've never had to deliver news by like that. She was so broken up, definitely shocked, because then she asked me again, wait, who, and I just, I'm thinking about her today as well, because I know that I can't believe that she covered the game the other day, the strength in that. That's what Jessi was. She was just a special, special person. And it's gonna be hard too. Like every email that so we're on a group email, all of us beat writers, because we share a lot of things, whether it's, if somebody misses a quote and everything. And the first name that always pops up is Jessi. So every second you're just reminded and just, I don't know, she just had a glow, just the greatest person, the greatest mother, the way she balanced motherhood, having 3 kids and always doing things to make sure that their life, they were the 3 cutest kids as well. It's just a tragedy. My heart breaks for Mike and everybody. My heart breaks for her dad, who had Alzheimer's. And she basically, their loving relationship too. I think as she wasn't a member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association, because people affiliated with teams in the NHL can't be, but I know that we're going to be making a donation, and one of the things that we've suggested is something in her name for Alzheimer's, because it was so close to her heart as well, Anthony. I know that Alzheimer's dementia is something that is close to your heart as well.
Yeah, it for sure is. I lost grandparent to Alzheimer's. I lost my father to Lewy body dementia, and we had talked about that a couple times, just like what it's like to go through that and the pain that to watch your parent change and not be themselves anymore, but yet still be alive and a part of life was hard. And the other thing I'd go back to, I think you're exactly right. I mean, and I lived those years when my kids were little, that they came to work with me every day. They came to the ballpark with me. At that time, I was working for the St. Paul Saints. And so when she would bring her kids around, I knew what those times were like. And sometimes it would make some in our business roll their eyes and, what there's kids running. I was like, look, when you're at home, sometimes for me, it was Margot was pregnant and then with a newborn. So when she had a newborn, AJ and Vinny were 4 and 3, and they came with me everywhere I went just to get them out of mom's hair so that mom could take care of a baby. And for her, she had to bring the kids to work in order to do her job. And, I remember years carrying Gianni to the ballpark sometimes in a backpack, and she'd just walk around with me all day while I worked. And we saw the same with Jessi.
I remember when you were at the golf tournament 2 days after Gianni was born, and she had to bring her to Target right out of the hospital.
It wasn't a golf tournament. I was at a friend's wedding. I was in a wedding, but it was at
Margot tells this incredible story where
Lodge.
this like somebody else at Target comes up and he's like, "Oh, what a cute little baby. How old?" And Margot cries to her, 2 days. Because because she didn't want to say, "Where's your husband?"
Yeah, I had left to go to a wedding. We can get into that story again later, but the other, you mentioned golf, and that was the other spot. I'd see Jessi regularly because she worked at Loggers Trail and was, boy, it's been a devastating year for the loggers community. They lost their owner, Dan Pohl, died unexpectedly maybe 2 months ago. And now Jessi was same kind of role there. Like my daughters worked there. She was great to them, happy all the time, just a smile and just, the more you think about it, the more you just think that there was more to it.
Yeah. I can't imagine being as happy as she was all the time. I mean, every day I wake up and I'm not. So
right. Well, you're happy until you have to get your feet out of the bed and put them on the floor.
I said when Billy described her today as a ray of sunshine, I'm like, that's exactly what she is because certainly I don't bring that every day. I just bring grouchiness and a bad mood, as you know more than anybody. Obviously, it's a tough topic. Jessi was a very, very special person, a huge part of our media contingent here with the Wild. She will be incredibly missed. I feel so bad for her family. I feel so bad for those 3 kids and Jessi. It really is surreal. It's hard to believe. To Anthony's point too, just the other night, realizing that life goes on. We're sitting there covering a meaningless hockey game and looking over at the NHL.com seat and nobody's there. Just beyond belief. Hard to comprehend. We'll be right back on Worst Seats in the House. Deer hunting season is here, and it's time to own your odds with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. With the Hunt app, you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, tracks, and much more, all at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt. That's onxmaps.com/hunt to sign up today.
At Royal Credit Union, we believe in banking with purpose. That's why we're here for you and your community with people-first service, local support, and all the accounts and loans you need to help reach your financial goals. As a not-for-profit cooperative, everything we do benefits the people and communities we serve, because Royal isn't just where you bank, it's where you belong. Experience the Royal Credit Union difference and learn more at rcu.org/royal support. Insured by NCUA. Loans subject to credit approval. Equal credit opportunity.
Things break unexpectedly. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and when it does, most homeowners don't know which company to call first. That's why Aquarius Home Services is perfect. It simplifies everything with one call for all major home systems. Their experts handle everything across heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical. And right now, for any repair, you could save $98 by calling Aquarius Home Services. Again, for any repair, you could save $98. Reach out and they will have a fast response and, trust me, professional service. In fact, ask about their maintenance plans so you could avoid these repairs. Last week on the same morning, I had Brock and Zach over here. One was doing my spring HVAC tune-up. The other was doing my Connecticut water tune-up. 2 visits on one morning. It was like Grand Central Station. Aquarius is locally owned, trusted across Twin Cities and Wisconsin, and they eliminate juggling multiple contractors. One call and your problem is solved. So right now, you can book your service at aquariushomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. And don't forget to tell them Russo sent you.
Back here, Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Tough topic, but let's talk a little bit about the Wild. I know a lot more trivial. We were at practice today, Anthony. A lot of players on the ice. The old cliche is that's a good problem to have, but John Hines will have a very tough decisions coming up. But as Marcus Foligno pointed out to me today, in a blink of an eye, you can. I mean, look at the Wild. They just lost in a blink of an eye, Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, and him. And you need depth. And while these are tough decisions now, and it's probably going to create a lot of tough decisions, and might create some angst in the marketplace when they see which players might have to come out of the lineup. The reality is that to win a cup, you need 9 or 10 defensemen. Ryan Carter won a cup as a black ace. You need players. And so while this is a tough decision now, I think that everybody needs to kind of keep their eye on that this is good that they have this many players.
Yeah. And I mean, the guys that you mentioned, none of them are guys they think that are going to have any issue with being ready at the end of the regular season for sure. But yeah, they've got NHL caliber depth too. And there's going to be, either however you look at it, 5 guys for 2 spots or maybe 4 guys for 1 spot at the end of the lineup each night. And I think you've seen it on the ice right now. The internal competition is real. I think guys can all do the math. They all know that they've got to show something right now to prove that they belong in that lineup and in whatever role that they hope to be come playoff time.
Yeah. By the way, our next live show is April 6th at Tuttle's. April 6th at Tuttle's, and then we will have one right before the playoffs. I believe. Let me look at that date again, Anthony. April 16th. That's at Split Rocks, and then we'll be probably taking off the next day for Dallas or Denver. Obviously, it looks to me like not everybody's going to return in Tampa. I know that Marcus really wants to. We'll see with Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov. Again, these games kind of mean nothing. It's just fine tuning. The one thing John did say today is like, look, there was the game a couple weeks ago or a week ago where Bogosian came out, Petrie came in just to give Petrie a game because he hadn't played in a long time. And there's going to be some of that. Like it just because a Urov might come out or a Brink might come out or a McCarron might come out or a Nick Foligno might come out or somebody it's going to be to keep guys fresh.
Keep guys fresh. And it also, I think, is to keep guys healthy, keep gas in the tank. Could change if something dramatic happens in the standings where there's a chance to climb and either finish second and get home ice or even climb all the way to the top. I think that seems really unlikely when you look at the schedules that are remaining for these teams. It seems a foregone conclusion that the Wild are going to finish third in the division. And I know they won't say that yet, but the reality is if you look at Colorado's schedule, I just don't see a way that they slip. Dallas's schedule is a little bit tougher, but I think right now I think if Minnesota had aspiration, if they were going to be able to catch, they needed to get 2 and give 0 against the Stars the other day. To make up a point was good, and the win was big. But I really feel like, you're going to see a team that almost, I don't want to say accepts, because until the math says you can't, you never accept it. But that might put you in a different spot where, okay, a day off here or a day off there. And as we've talked, I think there are some combinations that John wants to be able to take a look at. And they might not be combinations that, hey, I want to see if I start game 1 with this,
right.
But if I have to go to something else, what would be the potential change?
He used about 10 different lines today, and I didn't tweet him out because I didn't want to create some heart attacks out there for fans. Anthony, what do you think of the Dallas game the other day? Because it was a weird game to really try to figure out, just because they're missing Foxa, Rantanen, and Hintz. The Wild are missing Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, and Marcus Foligno. So it's not everybody. These are clearly tired teams right now. I watched that Vegas game yesterday, and Dallas, tried, but Vegas definitely had the better legs. What do you make of the game? Obviously, the Wild competed really well.
Yeah, I thought the game was great. I thought it had you wouldn't have noticed if you didn't see jersey numbers. You wouldn't have noticed that guys were missing because it had intensity, it had jam, it had animosity, it had speed, it had chances, it had good goaltending, and it had an idea of what you might see if these teams are, in fact, the first round matchup in that Central Division series. And I think the fact that both teams are missing 3 key players made it somewhat comparing apples to apples. But I do think you start to look at some matchups that you may like or matchups that you may not like. And Hintz had last change in that game, so we got to look at what he might be thinking.
Yeah. I feel like, the one thing about that game the other night is like the way that everybody checked was like the way that you're going to want to see in the playoffs. Like defensively, they were really, really good. It felt like they were trying to emulate a playoff game, physicality, defense, like all that stuff.
Yeah, I think so. And some of the attention to detail in your own zone, the face-off circle, which is going to be a big part of a potential series, special teams, all of those things that were the Wild's undoing in previous playoff series against Dallas was their inability to win face-offs, and Dallas with a big edge on the special teams. And in that game, there were times where, for 2 periods, Minnesota was battling them pretty even on the face-off dot. Now, they were missing 2 of their best face-off men in Hintz and Faxa. 3rd period, Dallas dominated on the dot, but then Minnesota got 4 big penalty kills when they needed them in that game. And if they kill 80% in a potential playoff series, I like their chances. If you look at the last 16, now 17 meetings, well, 16 going into Saturday, Minnesota had one regulation win. Dallas was 10-1-5 in the last 16 head-to-head. And in those games, Minnesota had 9 power play goals and had given up 6 shorthanded goals. Dallas had a huge edge in the special teams. Their faceoffs were over 57%. So those are things that you have to find out. How do you match up in those areas? And I think in this game, Minnesota matched up particularly well and maybe gives you reason for optimism if those teams bang into each other in the first round.
Who do you think that they match up better with between the Avs and the Stars? I mean, obviously, to get to where they're going to want to go, they're probably going to have to beat both. But if you had to pick one first, be careful what you wish for. But
yeah, I mean, I don't think Colorado's game has looked tight since the Olympic break, but I think over the long haul this season, they've been the best team. And so, but right, if you look at just, I mean, obviously Dallas is 15-1-2 now, and their last were 18 after they left St. Paul. Well, it's hard to say that you'd rather face a team that's that hot playing their best at that point. But I think I still think that I'd rather see the Wild go up against Dallas just because Colorado's been the best team in the NHL. Minnesota's, and what's interesting, we talked about this in our broadcast Saturday. If you look at the games between these 3 teams, Dallas and Colorado, 3 games, all 3 to shootouts. Minnesota, Colorado, 4 games, 2 of them to shootouts. Minnesota, Dallas, now 3 games, 1 of them to overtime. So 6 out of the 10 matchups have gone past regulation with 2 left. Dallas still has a game against each team left. But think about that.
Crazy.
I mean, 6 out of 10 have gone. That's how evenly matched these 3 teams
well,
are.
Even the Chicago series has been like that.
Yeah, but I mean, these are the 3 that you're going to bump into in the top of in the playoffs.
Yeah, Bobby Brink, man, what his first game back from the shoulder injury, unbelievably rusty. Second game, holy crap, he looked like a superstar. Obviously, incredibly, like that play that he made on the breakaway goal, just the pass in open space and then taking off, and then Quinn hits him like he always hits everybody, and then the play that he made where Jason Robertson, by the way, I loved Dallas Stars fans, by the way, throughout that entire game. They're like, oh, Robertson, always gonna, he's gonna light up the Wild because his hatred for Bill Guerin and. He always stomps on the Wild, and then, they seem to ignore the fact that who screwed up on that overtime winner. It was Jason.
Well, let's leave that aside because Robertson's had an unbelievable year and scored his 38th of the season in that game and has been a great player. But I think to the point about Brink is he's shown
all your money, by the way.
He's shown he's shown a competitiveness and a feistiness and a willingness to stick his nose in that exceeds what his stature is, and has some skill, but he's a perfect example of the point I was making earlier about guys can do the math. And he's looking at this saying, I got to play my way into a lineup spot, even though they gave away a player to get him. And there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
And if it's me, I've said all along, I think he starts the playoffs on their 3rd line. But he's got to show now, am I the potential fit? If we need a scoring punch in the top 6
they are healthy,
in a particular game.
One good player is going to have to come out.
I'd say a couple good players.
I'm just saying, I think it's obvious that Hunter and Sturm are going to be out. If they're all healthy. The question is, who's the next one? Is it Yurov? Is it Brink? Is it Nick Foligno? Is it, I don't think it's going to be McCarron. I don't think it's going to be Trennan. I don't think it's going to be Marcus Foligno.
Yeah, but that to me is, we've talked about this last couple shows, and I had said, I think if it's me, I shouldn't say if it's, my guess would be the 4th line starts with Marcus Foligno, McCarron, and Trennan on it. And you probably start with a 3rd line that's got Yurov between Tarasenko and Brink. But that leaves Nick Foligno out.
Yeah.
And that might be game 1 with a very quick, Nick Foligno might be in there in game 2 if you see something. And it's amazing how quickly things can change. I mean,
Absolutely.
It was last week's show, you said you thought Tarasenko was the odd man out, and then all of a sudden he's got 4 goals in 4 games.
Crazy. And then that was 2 shows ago.
Yeah.
Last show I said, maybe Brink, and then Brink comes in and looks like a superstar.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I just think
so now, by the way, I'm saying Yurov just to make sure that he gets like 4 goals this week on the road trip. to really mess our minds.
Well, I think
it's probably Nick.
But not. I don't think that's a given. I think right now they've liked Urov over the course of the season. I think what's been interesting is to hear the way John Hines has talked about Hunter Haight, where he's seen some things in him, and should a center go down, he might be a guy in because he's shown a little bit of offensive punch. So that's actually one of Vinny's thoughts for this show. I'll throw it out to you right now, that any chance you'd give Haight a full-time look in the top 6 down the stretch, seems to have more offensive instinct right now than Urov.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a chance. I mean, if Urov is, I could just see if Urov is out game 1, and you almost need to replace him with Haight just to keep the fans from going crazy that this is going to be another Marco Rossi situation. Down the 4th line, Urov comes out. I definitely think, I mean, Hunter Haight looks like a player. That's been the best part to me of this last couple of weeks last couple of weeks. I mean, he's only played 2 or 3 games in a row, but it just feels like it's a reminder to the organization that this guy actually could play and should maybe be in the mix going into next season. I still have trouble believing that he would be the guy come playoff time. But things change in a blink of the eye, to Marcus Foligno's point. I mean, I remember a couple of weeks ago, everybody was asking me, do you think at this point, because they didn't get a center, that Charlie Stramel could debut in the playoffs? And now all of a sudden, this team's just overrun with another bunch of good players. It's like, I don't know. I thought that was, even though the Wild didn't have 3 good players the other day against Dallas, and Dallas were missing 3 good players, I thought that was a really uplifting thing, especially in a run of where the team has just not played great against non-playoff teams. Who cares if they played not great against non-playoff teams? They're going to be in the playoffs playing against playoff teams.
Right.
And what it shows is this team gets up for those games.
They get up for them, but and I know that we talked last week, we don't need to go back into this recent stretch against non-playoff teams. Mm-hmm. The Wild's game was better than the record indicated, but
should we talk about playoff format?
But they still didn't win those games. Yeah. But if you look at it, they're number 1 in the league right now against playoff teams, and they're number 2 against teams that are currently in the top 3. Yeah. And that changes a little bit each day as the playoff field changes. Like right now, Nashville holds a playoff spot.
Yeah.
And in the East, Detroit's now out. So each day when I run those numbers, I have to change like who the playoff teams are. But as of this morning, the teams that are currently in, the Wild have the best record in the league against them. They're one of, I think, only 6 or 7 teams that have lost more games than they've won against non-playoff teams. Mm-hmm. As I joked last week, they're not going to play any non-playoff teams in the playoffs, so that right. Shouldn't hurt them. But I think it's more the style of play. And I think the Wild, even though they lost the game against Chicago at home, it felt more like the way the Wild want to play games. And then the Dallas game clearly was that. And even though they fell behind on the early power play goal, I just thought it was a game that Minnesota wasn't clearly the better team, but neither was Dallas. It was a really evenly played game that was a punch for punch. Yeah. Dallas got some opportunities, 4-minute power play late, and Minnesota killed it off. I just think they've answered some of those big challenges quite well here in the second half.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. I thought that both goaltenders were outstanding, and you're going to have to get great goaltending to beat Ottinger, because he has just shown against the Wild, especially, that he just plays really well, especially in this building. I'm not sure, does he even have a regulation loss against the Wild in Minnesota? The one, right?
Ottinger?
Ottinger, yeah.
Yeah, he lost it when they played him here in November, December, whenever it was.
Yeah, so that would be the only one, but for the most part, he's really, really good. Lastly, your little hockey league. Apparently today I learned that I should have been setting my lineup the last 3 weeks, and now I'm up for the last place team in the league. Don't you think you should have told me this?
Well, there's an email that gets sent out every Sunday night.
Yeah, but I thought I was just out.
It has the schedule for the week on it with every week in the playoffs. It has the master file with our rosters. It also gets posted on a group me that here's the schedule for this week. So you get it in 2 places. It's been the same for,
I haven't seen the
this
grouping.
is now
I think I turned
like
off my
maybe
notifications.
10 or 11 years of our league. I think 10 years. It's been exactly the same.
But I'm usually not in this position. Usually I'm like, going for the championship.
You've been in the finals once and you got run over by the Panthers.
All right. So listen, but my point is that like when 4 or 5 weeks ago, the playoffs started and I was just out, I feel like that just should have told me that I was out and that I shouldn't have to look ever again.
The toilet bowl, the teams that don't make the playoffs, play for the number one pick next year because we don't allow tanking. So you play for the number one draft pick.
Right.
And if you get beaten the first round of the toilet bowl, you go to the Jackass of the Year series, and that's where you are right now.
Yeah.
And if you lose that, you have to buy the first round at next year's draft.
I know, and I won't whine like Dan Myers does. But I feel like the last 3 weeks when I wasn't setting my lineup, that maybe one of my competitors that I was playing should have just done me a solid and shown some integrity, Sully, and maybe texted me and said, hey, by the way, you might want to set your lineup. And by the way, I did notice like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I actually won the week despite not setting my lineup and having people like Jake Sanderson in there and a bunch of injured guys. I had Robert Thomas out of my lineup. He should probably be my number one center.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a great year for the Scribes.
Yeah, it really hasn't. Where are you right now? Are you going for the championship again?
No, I lost in the playoffs to the mighty Wombats. I got clipped on a Sunday night. Not that we need to spend a ton of time on this, but I lost out on a chance to. I had Jeremy Swayman, who missed the Bruins' only game the first week out of the Olympics, so I lost a goalie category that way. And on the last night, I lost by one faceoff. They had Anton Lundell won like 15 faceoffs in a Sunday night game. And we were even in penalty minutes. I had a penalty called on one of my guys that got rescinded on review.
Oh, my God.
And so I ended up losing to the Wombats.
Yeah.
I won.
Tell me that you went back through that Panther game and actually watched the video of every one of Lundell's faceoffs to make sure the off-ice officials got it right.
No, I didn't. But I was watching it because I had a couple centers playing as well. And so I was kind of keeping an eye on it. And he just kept winning draws. And so it was a tough loss. I had a good season. I was, I think, the second best team in the regular season, but got knocked out in the semifinals.
It'll be interesting over at the University of Minnesota today. Mark Coyle is talking after he introduces Boom May as the women's coach. Has been the associate coach over at the women's program for 3 or 4 years. Brett Larson has had multiple interviews, I believe, with the U, and might even have another one today. So I think he might be the front runner. Grant Patolny, who's another one of the top contenders, has had a couple interviews as well, all via Zoom. So we could be getting a decision here in the next little bit. They did have a mystery college coach that they interviewed, I believe, yesterday. I have a feeling I know who that coach is. Local guy, actually. So we'll see what happens there. And then I was told today that they might be interviewing one more guy, but I do think that Mark Coyle usually acts quick with these things. It wouldn't shock me if he even wants to have a press conference today when he talks at 4:00 and introduce a coach. So we'll see. Maybe by the time this podcast is out, we'll know who that coach is. But I think that it's going to be quick, Anthony, because the one thing, obviously the portal isn't open yet, but you got to start to make sure that your big guys don't go into the portal. There's probably a lot of these players on this team that you're probably not going to want back, and you're going to want to tell them, hey, you might want to go into the portal. So
it's such a different world in college hockey right now.
It's crazy.
And in all college sports. I saw, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I saw a graphic the other day. Actually, it was today, because it was listing the teams that are in the Sweet 16 for the men's basketball tournament. And it had just the logo of their starting five, where they started their collegiate career. And there are a couple teams that have their starting five started their collegiate career at 5 different schools.
It's crazy.
And there's one who didn't have a player that started at their own school.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of interesting. So yes, I think it's because of that, you do have to get things in place quickly, and you don't want to rush a decision. It's an important decision, but at the same time, everybody wants as much time as possible to get ramped up for next year.
Final topic of the show, Anthony. Jared Spurgeon 1,000th game ceremony the other day. It was awesome to see there. His parents, Barry and Debbie, on the ice. I've known them forever. I joked on X. I was at Tom Reed's one night, and they share the same parking lot as the Downtowner. And Matt Cullen's 1,000th game party was at the Downtowner, and I was leaving Tom Reed's, and I was backing out, and I hit a little Porsche, get out. I'm expecting the damage, not terrible, but definitely damage. And I look up and there's Jared and Barry just staring at me. I'm like, oh, great. And I knew right away I had to be a player. I've told this story 1,000 times, but I just said to Jared, I'm like, do you happen to know who this car belongs to? And he goes, I think it's, and I remember actually in real time thinking, I hope he doesn't say this guy. I hope he doesn't say this guy. I hope he doesn't say this guy. I hope it's like, Collins or Schultze's or something like that. And he goes, I think it's Schultze's. And then he ran across the street to tell Schultze that he banged into his car. But it was just great to see his parents on the ice. They haven't aged a bit. Seeing Jared's beautiful family on the ice as well as his children and his wife. And it's just amazing that this guy's played 1,000 games so far. You and I have been around for all of them.
Yeah, it's amazing. And at every level, defying the odds.
Yeah.
Being told you're not big enough, you're not going to make this team, can't make that team. And it's... What's amazing is that he has done all of that. When he was named the captain, I remember Bill Guerin's quote being, this was the obvious choice. There was only one choice. And the way he has helped build the culture here in Minnesota is really amazing. It's immediately became a leadership by group, not by one voice. And I mean, not that Mikko was any slouch as a captain either, but it was just Spurgeon made it clear that I'm not the only one here. This is our team, not my team. And I think we showed a graphic that night, Saturday on the show, the day of the celebration, that I thought was really interesting. Out of all active players that were drafted in the 5th round or later, the two guys that were on the ice that day were number 1 and number 2 in games played. Jamie Benn for Dallas, who was a 5th round pick, and Jared Spurgeon, who was a 6th round pick. And here they are, longtime captains of now we're talking about 2 of the top teams.
And remember,
in the NHL.
Spurgeon's path was even harder because the Islanders are the one that drafted him in the 6th round and let him go. And he was like an inch from going to Austria until the Wild not only brought him to to the development camp as an invite, brought him back to Traverse City. And they were going to sign both him and Tyler Johnson. Johnson got hurt, and they wound up signing Spurgeon. But that almost nobody ever gets as an invite signed. That almost never happens. And here he is, more than 1,000 games later. Now he owns every single defenseman record in Wild history, except for assists by 2 and except for power play points by 1. And he'll obviously probably
you better start getting assists because Quinn's going to take it away from him in about another year.
Just sure. Well, he got one the other night on the Brink goal, but it's
so did Hughes.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's just super cool. I was thinking that night Jessi would have loved to have been there and tweeting about it and taking videos of it. She wrote the Jared Spurgeon 1,000 game story in the program that night, which was so perfect. So again, tough podcast, tough couple days here in the state of hockey. Jessi had such an impact on the state of hockey. It's not even. I mean, it's just a massive loss. Her kids. Same thing, just all the best to her husband, Mike, from Anthony and I, and also her entire family. Thanks for listening again to this podcast. April 6th is our next live show. That is at Tuttle's. April 16th at Split Rocks. The 6th at Tuttle's, 16th at Split Rocks, 7 p.m. Thanks to our incredible sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut Water Treatment Systems, Onyx Maps, and Royal Credit Union. Talk to you, probably our next podcast might be at Tuttle, so talk to you next week, everybody. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive